The Saco River flows down from the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire, winding its way through some of the most serene wilderness in the United States. And on a perfect summer evening, a young couple was sitting by a campfire right on its banks, just enjoying the peace and quiet. They had set up their tent in a small clearing, and for hours, all they had heard was the crackle of their fire and the gentle sound of the river running past them. But as the sun dipped below the trees and the forest grew dark around them, they suddenly heard a strange, high pitched chattering sound coming from deep in the woods. The young woman looked at her boyfriend nervously, but he just laughed it off and said, It's probably just a fox. Don't worry about it." So she tried to relax. A couple of hours later, they had put the fire out and were tucked inside their tent. They were just about to fall asleep when they heard a soft thump on the fabric right above their heads. It sounded like someone had tossed a small rock onto their tent. The boyfriend, now a little annoyed, sat up and unzipped the tent flap just enough to yell out, "Very funny, guys. We know you're out there." He figured it had to be some local kids trying to scare them, but there was no answer from the darkness, just silence. He zipped the tent shut, and they both laid there, a little more on edge than before. Later that night, the woman woke up. She had to use the bathroom, of course, and she really didn't want to go outside, but she had no choice. She quietly unzipped the tent, trying not to wake her sleeping boyfriend, and slipped out into the moonlight. As she stood up and looked around the clearing, she saw a flicker of movement at the edge of the trees. It was a small, pale figure, and it darted behind a tree with a speed that just didn't seem natural. Her heart jumped into her throat, and she scrambled back inside the tent as fast as humanly possible, shaking her boyfriend awake. "There's something out there," she whispered, her voice trembling. He tried to calm her down, telling her it was probably just a deer, that her eyes were playing tricks on her in the dark, but neither of them could go back to sleep. They sat in the darkness, listening, and that's when they heard it, a slow scraping sound on their tent zipper. It was being pulled down from the outside. The boyfriend grabbed his heavy Maglite flashlight, his knuckles white. They both stared at the growing gap in the tent door, their breath caught in their chests, and then a hand appeared in the opening. It was bone white with long, thin fingers connected by a thin membrane of skin, like a web. The woman let out a choked scream, and the hand instantly vanished. They heard a frantic scrambling sound and then a loud splash from the river. The couple would spend the rest of the night huddled together, too terrified to move, listening to every snap of a twig, convinced some monster was circling their campsite. But what they didn't understand was that the creature they had just encountered was not some random beast of the forest. It was a demon, born from a tragedy that had cursed this river hundreds of years ago. It would turn out the Saco River has a dark history. The story begins with three drunken sailors who, for some cruel reason, kidnapped a Native American baby from a nearby tribe. They believed that babies were born with the ability to swim. And so, as a sick form of entertainment, they threw the child into the river's rushing waters. The baby, of course, could not swim and immediately drowned. The baby's mother, watching in horror from the riverbank, leapt into the water to save her child immediately, but she too was overcome by the current and drowned. In his grief and rage, the tribe shaman went to the most powerful place on the river, a thundering waterfall, and he summoned a demon. He called forth an ancient spirit of the water, a creature known as the Meim Quasi, and tasked it with a single terrible purpose: to avenge the mother and the child by killing 3 white men in the river every single year forever. And so the curse began. Over the centuries, the Saco River became infamous for its unexplained drownings. Strong swimmers would be pulled under by unseen forces. Boats would be mysteriously capsized, and bodies would turn up with the looks of pure terror frozen on their faces. The creature itself has been seen many times, though few have gone as close as that young couple. Its legend spread far beyond the Saco. A boy named Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon religion, claimed to have seen a white salamander that many believe was the same entity. In other parts of New England and even up into Quebec, the creature has been given different names. On York Hill, it was called the White Monkey, and French locals in Canada called it l'Étiole, or the Star, because of its pale, glowing appearance. But the descriptions are always eerily similar. It's just under 5 feet tall, with stark white skin, large, dark ringed blue eyes, and piranha like teeth. It has webbed hands and a long, thin tail, and it always vanishes back into the water when it's seen. It has been spotted in New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, and along the coasts of Maine and Massachusetts, but never in 2 places at once, because it is a single, solitary demon forever bound to its vengeful task. The couple in the tent never saw the creature again. When the sun came up, they packed their things in a blind panic and fled, never looking back. They told the police their story, but what could the police really do? To them, it was just a spooky campfire tale, but the couple knew what they saw. They had come face to face with the Saco River's oldest and darkest secret. They had survived an encounter with the Meim Quasi, the demon summoned to avenge a murdered child who to this day still hunts for its 3 victims year after year. One sunny afternoon in 1959, a man named Mr. Boyd was driving his family down a quiet road near Saltville, Virginia. In the car was his wife and his young daughter, Pauline. It was a beautiful day, and the family was just enjoying a leisurely drive through the countryside, taking in the scenery of the dense wilderness that lined the road on both sides. They had the windows down, the breeze was blowing through the car, and everything was just peaceful and calm. But as they rounded a sharp bend in the road, Mr. Boyd suddenly slammed on the brakes. Standing in the middle of the road, not more than 50 feet in front of them, was this creature that none of them could identify. At first, they thought maybe it was a bear, but as they got closer to it, the look, they realized it wasn't a bear at all. Pauline, who was staring out the window from the back seat, would later say the creature looked like a monkey, but it was much bigger than any monkey she'd ever seen. It was covered in light taffy colored hair, and it had this distinct white blaze that ran down its neck under its belly. It was standing on 2 huge back legs, and its front legs or arms were much shorter. The creature just stood there staring at the car with an unnerving intensity. Mr. Boyd, not knowing what else to do, honked the horn, hoping to scare it off. But the creature didn't move. Instead, it let out this horrible guttural scream and charged directly at their car on the road. Mr. Boyd frantically tried to throw the car in reverse, but before he could, the creature was on them. It leaped onto the hood of the car and began clawing and biting at the windshield. The family was screaming in terror as this beast relentlessly attacked their vehicle. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the creature jumped off the car, turned, and disappeared back into the woods. The family sat there in stunned silence, their hearts pounding in their chests. When they finally got out to inspect the damage, they saw deep scratches and gouges all over the hood and the roof of their car. They were all physically unharmed, but they were deeply shaken. They had no idea what they had just encountered. A few days later, the terror in Saltville continued. Two nurses were driving in the same area in a convertible with the top up, thankfully. As they drove along that same stretch of road, the same creature leaped out of the forest and landed on the top of their car. The women screamed as the beast began ripping and tearing at the convertible's soft top. It tore a huge hole in the roof, its claws just inches from their heads. The sound of the women's screams, however, seemed to frighten the creature, and it scurried off the car and vanished back into the woods, leaving the two nurses terrified but alive. News of these attacks spread like wildfire, and people began to believe a monster was stalking the roads of Virginia. But it would turn out this wasn't just happening in Virginia. The incident seemed to spread. In the 1970s, reports began surfacing in Albany, Kentucky. Farmers were finding their cattle slaughtered and horribly maimed. Cattle are notoriously difficult to kill, so this was very shocking. Witnesses described a large, bushy tailed ape like creature with a face like a dog. The attacks were so vicious and so strange that a famous cryptozoologist named Loren Coleman actually traveled to Albany in 1973 to investigate. He interviewed dozens of witnesses, and while he found no hard evidence of the creature, he would later state that the people he spoke to were sincere. They truly believed they had seen some kind of a monster. Then in 1979, the sightings moved to rural Georgia. People reported seeing a simian entity with a muzzled snout and a bushy tail lurking in the forests. For decades, it seemed like some unknown aggressive primate was roaming the southeastern United States, attacking cars, killing livestock, and terrifying entire communities. Nobody could explain it, but it would turn out these weren't isolated monster attacks. And to understand what was really going on, we have to go all the way back to 1934 in a small town called South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. Back in 1934, there was a terrible accident. A truck, or by some accounts, a train that was transporting circus animals crashed. And during the chaos, a whole troop of baboons escaped into the Tennessee wilderness. In the days and weeks that followed, people in South Pittsburgh began reporting sightings of these strange, baboon like creatures. They were seen leaping and bounding across fields and dashing across roads, but this was a rural area, and back then news didn't travel fast. The local authorities tried to round them up, but the baboons were just too fast and too smart, and they just melted into the wilderness. After a few weeks, the sightings stopped and people just kind of forgot about it. But the baboons didn't disappear. They survived. and they bred. And their descendants slowly spread out from Tennessee, moving through the forests and mountains unseen and unknown to the humans who live there. And so in 1959, when the Boyd family was on their peaceful drive near Saltville, Virginia, what they saw was not a monster. It was a descendant of those escaped circus baboons. Pauline's description was shockingly accurate. A monkey like creature with taffy colored hair, a white blaze on its neck going down to its belly, standing on two large back legs with shorter front arms. This is the perfect description of a baboon. And their aggressive, unprovoked attack on the car, well, that's classic baboon behavior. They are notoriously territorial and aggressive animals. They do not hesitate to attack or kill even humans. The different descriptions from Kentucky and Georgia also line up. A baboon's face, with its long snout, could easily be described as dog like or muzzled by someone who has never seen one up close. And their long, often bushy tails would be a standout feature for decades. Families and entire towns were terrorized by what they believed was a monster. But the truth was far more mundane, though perhaps just as strange. It was a lost colony of baboons living and thriving in the American South, a forgotten accident that created a legend.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as it greatly helps out the channel. I'll see you next time on Planet 412.
What do you think dogman is? Do you think it's supernatural or flesh and blood?
You know, that's a slippery slope for some people. So, with my experience, I 100% believe that it was supernatural.
We just heard a rock clack right over here.
So, I wanted to lastly thank somebody that I have been needing to for quite a while. His name is David Walker. He is a great writer of many books, but I want to point out one specific one that he's made the most recent, and yours truly is in it. It's called Supernatural Cryptids Return of the Nephilim. And check out this cover. Really awesome. I'll put it up here for you guys. It is just really kick ass. On the back, it is really beautiful. I mean, it is a beautifully done cover. You got Dogman and aliens, Bigfoot, reptilians, chupacabra, and I would assume that's like a demon there. And this is the, I believe, fourth or actually my fifth book I'm in. And in chapter 12, I actually get top billing. And you see right here, there's my mug and everything. And something that I'm proud of here, but it really happened. So it's kind of really scary at the same time. I'm just going to say this real quick. This encounter by Matt Emsch has to be, in my opinion, the scariest story in this book. My friend and co-author Richard McCandlish has had a couple of close encounters by similar beings before, But Matt literally stared death in the face, being only 4 to 5 feet away from this huge dark entity. It is very true. And I've got, about, let's see, 5 pages here in the book. Like I said, David Walker has done an amazing job in this. There's my name right there as well. So make sure you go on to Amazon and you can look up David Walker and again Supernatural Cryptids: Return of the Nephilim on Google, and make sure that you guys grab a copy. He's done so much hard work. I mean, it's super thick, very beautiful, well written book. Great job, David. Thank you. I'm honored for you putting me in your book. So grab yourselves a copy, everybody. I appreciate it.